Bonsoir à tous. Je pense on arrive au terme
Good evening. So we're about to conclude this very fruitful day. Speaking French now, even though I started speaking English this morning. But before welcoming the minister, I'd like to share with you a few words of conclusion and say thanks to all those who enabled the organization of this event. First, the UM6B University, and more specifically Shamil Abdi, Amin Dabshi, who's been very instrumental this past 4 months preparing this spring session. I'd like to thank the UM6B teams, the OCP teams, but also the teams of the Paris Peace Forum, and more particularly Barbara. She has dealt with the whole logistics of the event. And thanks to Anne-Cécile, she was also very instrumental in the programming of our working day. So thank you. I'd like to thank also the Foundation Mo Ibrahim, with whom we've been preparing today's sessions, and thanks also for the trust given by Mo and Nathalie de la Palme. I'd like to thank all the forum partners, the foundation, all the corporations, the development agencies who have been supporting the forum and who believe and trust this forum. They have been supporting us financially speaking. Thank you to all the partners. A few words to conclude. I know it's not an easy task because I have not attended all these sessions. Some of them were simultaneous sessions. But I can yet give you an overview of what has been done today. Well, it's the first time we've been organizing this event elsewhere, not in Paris, but in Africa, in Morocco. And we've had a very fruitful debate on fair transitions. And as Nisrine said this morning, but where do we come from? In African countries, can we really talk about transition? Do we have to change the economic model because it produces lots of carbon? The answer is no. But if it is a fair transition, if it is a global transition, then, and this is what I've heard today, this is something that has to be dealt with by the North and by the South. We need to find policy methods, a formula, so as to move from a carbon-based economy that is not able to meet the needs of the whole population towards fairer systems that can meet the needs and expectations. So I've heard lots of discussions about the balance between climate and development, how can we find enough resources, and policy reforms so as to protect the earth, reduce carbon emissions, and fight against poverty at the same time. We cannot wait until the whole world is developed before fighting against climate change, but this cannot be done causing prejudice to the development. I've heard lots of ideas, but also worries about the resources needed for both objectives, development on the one hand and climate change actions, and concessional funding that have been dropping these past 2 years because of the COVID that has disturbed policies and public policies, and that has been a great issue. We have structural issues. Mo Ibrahim talked about capital cost in Africa. This is something that we've been through for more than a year, since June 2023. Investing in Africa in the same solar plant in Kenya, Liberia, in Germany, or in France does not have the same cost. I would say that it's much more costly in Africa. Hence the high price of capital in this continent, and we have so far no concrete answers. I've heard lots of worries about the outcome of yesterday's European elections, and more particularly in the roundtable on elections and fair transitions. People seem to be worried about all those European countries that seem to prefer just looking at each other, and the rise of the right-wing parties in those countries. And you can see by contrast the need for working collectively on public issues, and on the same time this more nationalist outcomes in the US and elsewhere. And this is maybe the reason why we have the populist and right-wing parties coming up that are not going to improve the international coordination and the North-South coordination in particular. I've also heard some motives for satisfaction as the international organizations are able to act, NGOs, philanthropy organizations are able to move forward. There are also other stakeholders, and all that has been done today. And this is maybe the last point I wanted to pinpoint. What we've done today was not only discussing. These discussions, debates are useful and interesting, but we have made great achievements today, at least 3 that are around the basic pillars of the Forum for Paris. It's a multi-stakeholder forum from the north to the south since the beginning. You know that in our executive board we have organizations from the north but also from the south. UM6P has joined the board, and Sciences Po also. We also have Germany that is represented in the General Assembly, Kenya. We have foundations from the north and from the south, and so on and so forth. What we've been trying to do today was to provide something else to our basic pillars. We did not want only to have a debate, a conference of these very interesting topics, but to go much beyond. We needed this policy engineering. How can we find common grounds, a consensus that can be a base for our discussions in the World Bank, in the United Nations, at the governmental level in the north and the south, be useful to decision makers, to businesses, but also to NGOs. In a word, we wanted to make sure that the debate could deviate, better represent different views, because we are often said, what is your usefulness? You're not the G7 or the G20. You're not able to make decisions on public aid investments. And on the other hand, we're not an NGO. You're not in the field. You cannot actually improve the education in Africa and contribute to a better irrigation in Africa, and this is right, but we do something in terms of coordination of global governance between players, because we need to find out what is the best consensus, what is the best policy, the framework, regulatory framework, because the system is landlocked at the United Nations. The United Nations is still essential, but you have lots of rivalry between great powers, between states, also within the EU. So the 3 main achievements today, and we are quite proud of it, it's what we have said about African agriculture. The roundtable for the creation of the Atlas Lab, it is finishing around 6. All the organizations attending will be joining us here for the final speech of the minister. We have 9 new signatories with new organizations supporting this initiative for African agriculture. We want to make sure that the views of the North and the South that are quite opposite can realign for the benefit of African agriculture, since we need to support the demographic growth, but also the rest of the world. So this is a global question, and we need, as I said, to fund the transition of the agriculture in Africa. The second main achievement, apart from the launch of the Atlas Lab, is nutrition. In March, Nutrition for Growth Summit will be held on nutrition. Traditionally, the country that organized the Olympic Games is the one hosting the same conference, and France will be therefore organizing it. The Paris Forum for Peace will be dealing with this topic, and with the groups set up today, a group expert chaired by Shan Baker, who is here, I think, in the room, is one of the most respected authorities, with a group of experts worldwide who will tell us what are the best policies to implement at that summit. And on the other hand, a contact group with the private sector, as the private sector is at the same time one of the reasons of the problem of the malnutrition, but also part of the solution. So a dialogue required in this sense. And the third main achievement we've made today is the launch this afternoon of the Global Council on Responsible Critical Minerals. You know that this is an essential matter in Africa, and hence its launch in Africa. We know that we need much more critical minerals for this green transition, but how can we make sure we can avoid geopolitics and geoeconomy of oil and gas? And we know what has been the cost of it in terms of dictatorships, in terms of exploitation by countries, by others. So how can we make sure that this new geopolitics is not just simply replicated into the world of minerals? How can we have a more fluid market? How can we have a more responsible industry? So these are the topics on which the Global Council will be addressing. There are 10 advisors working the whole afternoon on this topic. Some of them are present, and I'm very happy to see that from now on they will be able to provide their opinion and share their views, not only with the Chinese, the Americans, and the French, but in the interest, again, of the rest of the world. So this is it. I guess now it's my pleasure to welcome dear Minister. I'd like to introduce her in a few words.
Madame la ministre Nadia Fta, qui nous fait l'amitié de venir ici au campus.
Oui, Mrs. Nadia Fatah, who has been kind enough to join us here at the UMCSP campus. For the spring meeting, she is the first woman Minister of the Exchequer in Morocco. She has started her training and education in HC in Paris, Paris Chaussée, and she started her career in the insurance business through many companies that she has founded herself. She's also founded the Women's Club in Morocco, and also member of the Business Association of Women. In 2019, she was appointed Minister of Tourism, Entrepreneurship, and Handicraft at the age of 47. And today she is the Minister of Finance of Morocco, and I'm very proud and honored to welcome her. Thank you very much. A big round of applause. Thank you. Monsieur, Honorable President Angel Goulia, Honorable Director General Justin Weiss, Honorable and distinguished audience, I am delighted to be here with you in this spring meetings 2024 of the Paris Peace Forum. I am truly honored by all those who have stayed and make it so long to listen to a minister after very rich discussions. So this theme of this year, based on the fair transitions, has really addressed the possibilities and opportunities facing us. As you are in Morocco today, allow me to share with you some of the initiatives and achievements of Morocco in this field under the enlightened vision and guidance of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI. So Morocco engaged 15 years ago on the ecological and sustainable environmental path, inclusive and fair, with an acceleration path over the last years, thanks or maybe due to the stakes and challenges and recent crises. So Morocco has adopted a national strategy of sustainable development, embracing sustainability principles in all public policies, supported by flagship programs like Aliotis program for fisheries, the Green Generation program, or green program, agricultural program, green generation program, as it puts into the heart of the program youth and women. And Morocco has started an ambitious program to increase the share of environmental issues, and solar and wind parks of Midelt and Tafaya are emblematic examples of this energy transition. The objective in Morocco is that 52% of energy by 2030 be of a renewable source. Now, when it comes to water, the new strategy is also allowed to address the challenges of a structural drought. Unfortunately, and Morocco is about to cross 6 consecutive years of drought and scarce water resources. This has been translated by a lot of difficulties and challenges in the agricultural field. And in 2023, over 300,000 jobs have been lost. So the mindset has changed rather, and we're not managing only drought years, but also structural scarce years, and we have allocated billions of dirhams to come up with solutions, namely water desalination. So we also engage in the international financial structure to be more equitable, fair, and inclusive. And Morocco finally has adopted for an inclusive development without overlooking the social protection, the compulsory universal health coverage. 22 million have enjoyed this health coverage, access to housing, and direct targeting of subsidies to households. Over 3 million of people and households are benefiting from this subsidies. So we cannot wait for the development to happen. Inclusion needs to happen now. So the inclusion is now happening, waiting for this sustainable development. So we need, as Mr. Vey said, an equilibrium to actually achieve, strike a balance between sustainable development and development. We are engaged in this resilience and public policies in Morocco, long-term ones, and a macroeconomic framework. So we have managed to do both. It's not the same or not the case everywhere. We are in the African continents. You know how hard it is on other African countries, facing a lot of challenges as in other parts of the world. So this double challenge to finance climate transition and finance development is a real and daily difficulty. And by the way, some countries are only reimbursing or paying the debts. So not a default in terms of debt payment, but also a default in terms of the future of generations and youth and climate transition. So funding this fair transition is our daily fight. So we have a lot of instruments on taxation, on carbon tax. So let's face it, what we need is more money. And we can, of course, come up with concepts and create concepts. This is very important. But the key message is that we need more money and now. And this is extremely important to be reminded. A lot of initiatives have been in place and have been coming on and on, but eventually, when take the case of Africa, we produce less than 1% of the carbon footprint, and we actually consume a very large part of this. So the cost of money is very expensive. Mr. Mo Ibrahim spoke about it, and he's been extensively explaining this. It's been always very expensive, even and especially when the Fed has increased its rate of interest. And when you are in Africa and you have to build a dam, an electricity ban, and you are told that there is a financial crisis in the United Nations or inflation crisis in the United States, this is very hard to explain to and citizens. So if this money is very expensive for the southern countries, you can imagine how expensive it is with the private sector. So the private sector is part of the solution, but they don't have access to financing. And when they do, is a very, very high cost and very high rates, which is not fair to achieve this transition. Finally, for the institutions, I think there is a current momentum, and the voice of developing countries needs to be further heard in the global decision-making process. The African continent has a seat in the G20. This is only beginning, but it's not enough. In some of these institutions, the voice of Africa is 20 countries, 15 countries that only have a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes to explain what it is that they need and what they can do. So in this overall thinking, the voice of the countries that need to achieve this transition needs to be heard louder. I'm sorry, I have been very lengthy. I promised to speak only for 10 minutes. I will wrap up very quickly. I would like to also conclude that on this new financial architecture, what really matters is the velocity and execution and implementation. And this is where I'd like to pay tribute to all of you who have been pondering on all these initiatives, hopefully being implemented successfully. So this is very important. We need to walk the talk. What is mobilized and can be mobilized for a fair transition. We are achieving very low transition rates. And if we can do it quickly, this will mitigate the impact and increase the results. By closing these annual, or rather spring meetings, I encourage you to all work together with determination and optimism. The challenges ahead are huge, but we can hear here and there a collective, maybe naive, but still a collective stream of awareness and engagements to make a difference, to build bridges between nations, sectors, and communities. The polls have expressed themselves yesterday and have spoken in Europe. Most not likely on the fair transition, but on the on borders, immigration, because we haven't addressed the environmental transition and sustainable development and a fair transition. So this is only an expression of a fear for challenges that have been long-hanging fruits that haven't been managed. Oh, I don't want to depress you all, but I'd like to take a moment to thank the UMCSP, the OCP group for holding this meeting in this symbolic center and venue that has become a flagship, a proud for Morocco, that allying excellency and dynamism and allowing science and development to go hand in hand. And this venue reminds us that talents are actually equitably scattered around the globe, and they only need to express themselves. So we are going to forge this better future and more sustainable future for all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Minister. Rest assured, this is over. I have only 2 comments to make. I wanted to commend the minister because in what she said, we kind of find everything, or a sum up of the forum: the weight of international institutions, the burden of inflation on the shoulders of developing countries, the difficulty to implement local projects in the field, and the fact that many countries like Morocco also are the spokesperson or the spokesvoices of this global south. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and thank you. But the last word is to say that let's meet again. The forum, as you know, is held in November, on the 11th of November. We're going to change the venue this year. We're going to go to Palais de Chaillot to hold this forum on the 11th of November. And we have a title already that I'm giving you as a preview: Wanted a Functioning Global Order. And very often we want this functioning global order that works out for all, that would solve the issues and problems of security, the two wars that are happening and unfolding now, that will pacify the north and west stresses, and that will allow a formidable and great development motion that we have been witnessing over the last decades. Thank you very much for your attendance, and wish you a very good rest of the week. Bye.